He's the public speaker, not I. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for coming out this afternoon. So basically, my name is Kathryn Dixon, for those of you who are just meeting me for the first time. We've been here once before. Well, I think my husband has spoken for you a couple of times, but this is my second time being here. One of the things that I've been kind of passionate about is diversity and inclusion. Kind of fell in my lap when I was working for Department of Defense, but currently I'm working for the VA as a nurse. And as you know, nurses can't always pick who their patients are, so you have to know and be culturally competent when you're dealing with the patients that you're seeing. So we want to do some activities this afternoon that I hope are going to be a little bit on the fun side, but of course we're going to have a serious take on what we're talking about as well. But hopefully it'll be a catalyst to conversations to be had long after I'm gone. All right, so anybody have any questions so far? We're all good? All right, we'll give you a few minutes to kind of get settled in. All right, if you would be willing to give us some opening prayer for me, please. And we'll get started.
All right. Let's pray. Father in heaven, Lord, we are thankful for this opportunity to come here to College Station once again, to meet with your people, Lord, and just to share some information and knowledge, experiences, Lord, that would draw us closer to not only you, but one another. And so, Lord, I ask that you would be with Kathryn as she presents, Lord, and those that are here, those that are watching, that their hearts will be moved, that they would start thinking things differently. And, Lord, when it's all said and done, that we will say that it was good to have been in the house of the Lord today. We pray this in your name. Amen.
All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have your phones on, if you can put them on silent just so that we don't have any distractions, and because I want your full attention when we're doing things. We're going to have a total of about 3 activities, which I'm going to try to limit us to about 30 minutes, give or take, just so we can kind of get into a couple of things. So can anyone tell me what their take is on diversity, and what do you think it is? Don't be shy. I like people talking to me. If not, I start picking on people. Okay, I hear gender, ethnicities, backgrounds. Can anybody else see anything else that might be considered diverse? Age, okay. Anything else? Gender. Okay, great answers. Do you have one? No, that's okay. You're warming up, it's okay. But every answer you provided me was actually correct. I'm going to give you what the definition per the dictionary, and it says it can be seen as a difference in racial and ethnic, socioeconomic, geographic, academic, professional backgrounds. It is people with different opinions, religious beliefs, political beliefs, heritage, and life experiences. But more succinctly, it holds the belief that each person is unique and recognizing, respecting, and appreciating others for their individual differences. So now that we know what diversity is, what do you think inclusion would look like, or what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not just, and there's another one that says not just having different people at the party, but inviting them to dance too.
Were you reading my notes?
I've been doing a lot of research.
I see that. I see that. Well, since you brought up that quote, I'm going to actually give you the author of that quote. Her name. I'm going to bring you up here and let you teach this. Her name is Verna Myers, to be exact. She's a change catalyst, influencer, social commenter, author, and she described it just as you stated. Diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. Just let that settle in for a minute. Think about what that's saying. How many times have you been asked to come to some kind of group function and you might have been the wallflower on the side? So yes, you were there. You were able to lend your presence, but did you feel like you were a part of whatever the activity was? All right. So again, inclusion takes on, as it says per their definition, it is when there is an organizational effort and practice in which different groups or individuals have different backgrounds and are culturally and socially accepted and welcomed and treated equally. So when dealing with an organization of diverse backgrounds, just as we do with the church, it's important to identify any unconscious biases to avoid decisions that can impact those individuals with whom we come in contact with in a negative way. All right, so has anybody heard the term unconscious or implicit bias? And what do you think those are? We talked about some of them already. What are some things we can be biased about? Age, race. Anyone else? I'm sorry? Anyone else? Gender. Okay. What about socioeconomics? Okay, I'm going to take one and simplify it. What about right-hand bias? Think about a lot of things that are in the world. I see I got a witness. Okay, so there we go. So you can really honestly be biased about literally anything and everything. And how do you think these biases impact people? What are some things that can be affected because we show biases, or we may have biases acted upon us? He said use of can openers and scissors for those that are watching at home. Definitely, especially if you're left-handed, that can be quite difficult in a right-hand world. All right, anything else? What about healthcare? We're hearing a lot about that. Okay, and you may be able to attest to that. Anything else? What about job promotions? Anything else? Academic scholarships. Perfect. Okay, you're new coming in. I like to pick on people too, so. You have anything to add?
Well, he took mine.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. We'll come back around the room. We'll swing back around. All right. Well, if there were more kids here, what about even being picked for a team? You know, I'm sure we can all relate to being the last person picked on a team for whatever reason. Oh, well, they can't hit the ball right. Oh. All right. Well, if we brought it closer to home, even with, thinking about church work, maybe certain persons would be picked to be the pick for top elder or first elder. Well, they're more religious and they know more of the Bible and they should be the elders board. Possibly, maybe. Okay. All right. How do you think we learn these biases? What are some ways that we get these biases? Media. From our parents. Okay. I'm sorry? Academics, yes. Anybody else? I didn't hear what you said. Friends, yes. Mm-hmm. Definitely peer pressure. Mm-hmm. What about books we read? Experiences that we come in contact with just day-to-day strangers. Mm-hmm. All right, and maybe even leaders that we admire. Quite possible. All right, so many of us are raised in environments that may have offered limited exposures to people of different backgrounds, perspectives, and ways of life. Oftentimes, the information we glean about others often comes secondhand and from less credible sources and no firsthand knowledge. So the first activity that I would like for us to embark upon is dealing with unconscious bias, and I'm going to ask a helper, which would be my husband in this case. He's my new Vanna. If you would be so kind as to hand that out, Vanna. And I hope everyone has pens. If not, I did bring a couple of extra if I need to. Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, you need one more? I'm sorry. I'll give you a couple more just in case. All right, just like in school, don't read ahead. All right. Once everybody has pens, we'll try to get started, and I'll make sure if you can keep me on track with time. Maybe about 25 minutes, 20, 25 minutes. All right. So here are your instructions. Okay, for our first activity, I would like you to write the name or the initials, whatever's your preference, as long as you know who you're writing down about. And I want it to be the first person that comes to mind when you think of the following positions in your own personal lives. And I want you to be honest, the first person that comes to mind. So let's look at the first one. Doctor, and it could be any type, past or present. Write their name or write their initials, as long as you can know who it is you are talking about. All right, moving on. Your significant other or spouse. First thought that comes to mind. A neighbor, past or present. What about your best friend? Let me know if you need more time writing. Number 5, college roommate. Number 6, your favorite childhood teacher or professor. Number 7, the person who cuts or styles your hair. As my husband rubs his bald head. And if it's yourself, you can put yourself, that's fine too. Number 8, the person you admire as a leader, past or present. Number 9, the author of the last book you read for pleasure, not because you were made to. And lastly, I want you to put your favorite food. Does anybody need a little bit more time? I'll give you a few minutes more while you're thinking. Another 15 seconds. I see some people still writing or thinking. All right, just like in school, ding, 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 pencils down. All right, so now I want you to take a look around the room. What you'll see is several signs listing different ethnicities or backgrounds. Just in case you're not able to see it because of the distance, I'll kind of call them all for you and for those that are watching. We have a category of other, African American or Black, Middle Eastern, Pacific Islander, Hispanic / that should have been / Latino, white, Alaskan Native, American Indian, East Asian, Southeast Asian, South Asian. Now, when the prompt is called by me, I want you to move very quickly to the racial category that best describes the person whose name or initials that you wrote in that particular prompt. While you are doing this, there's 2 things that I need you to pay attention to. I need you to pay attention to what category you find yourself in. I need you to pay attention to what the rest of the group is doing. Okay? Everybody's cool with the instructions? All right, starting with number 1, doctor, any type, past or present. Go to that category that names the person in your first list. Okay, please still social distance, That's why we have the papers so far from each other. I promise you I won't be mad if you hold some distance apart from each other. Okay, but am I saying that this whole group is over here? Is that what we're saying? Okay, very good. All right, again, make note of where you are and where everybody else is going. significant other, or spouse. Okay. Yes, it is. Yes, it does encompass quite a bit, yes. All right, ready? Your neighbor, past or present, or current, I should say. Well, now you're going to have to introduce yourself to your neighbor.
I know him well, but I guess I'm going to take an educated guess. But I believe
Okay. And I'm going to ask some questions about what I'm seeing too as well. All right. What about your best friend? Okay. Which group? This one. Okay. All right. What about your? Okay. I'll let everybody kind of get settled so you're not getting out of breath. What about your college roommate? Okay. If you didn't go to college, what about somebody that you went to school with in elementary, high school? It's okay. Everybody gets a choice. Or you can pick other. If you don't have an answer to yours, other is always a good fill-in. All right. What about your favorite childhood teacher or professor? You said you didn't like any of them? Hopefully they're not listening right now. All right. We'll let everybody get into place. Okay. What about the person who cuts or styles your hair? You can join in. You can, if you want to give them a paper so they can at least know what's going on. And I'm going to pause this momentarily to bring them up to speed, if that's okay, since we have such a small group. Is everybody okay with standing? Nobody's going to faint on me? So, ma'am, what we're doing, we're looking at the list that is in front of you, and I want you to think of the first person that you think of in that category, that fits that category. And what they're doing is there's categories around the room. If the person that you first think of in that category fits that particular grouping, then that's where I would like you to move to. Not so much present, in your personal life and in your personal experience. So if you look at the first one, it says doctor. So depending on what ethnicity your doctor was, you would go to that particular grouping. Okay? Yes, if you need a pen or if you want to just think it in your head, that's fine, because they've already written down their responses. So if you just want to move, that's fine. So where did we leave off? We were on number 7, I believe. So the person who cuts or styles your hair, think about who cuts your hair and move to that category. All right, so I'll give you a chance to kind of peruse the groupings since they're already settled. If you can't find the person, if you don't think they fit in any group, then other would be the exception. All right. We'll give you a chance to move. You're thinking? Okay. While she's thinking, number 8, person you admire as a leader, both past or present. Okay. So am I assuming Pacific Islander, or is he still reading instructions? Still reading instructions. Okay. Okay. What about the author of the last book you read for pleasure? Okay. It could be an audio book. It could be anything. All right, I'm just kind of spotting where everything is. And what we're also asking you to pay attention to where everybody else is moving as well as yourself. All right, and lastly, think about your favorite food or the ethnic group that's associated with that food. Okay. Now, I must admit, I'm a little curious. What type of food do you like? Stew. Okay. Really? Okay. So the next time I come, will you be making that for us? Oh. Okay, and I have all these witnesses. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. All right. Well, I'll be looking forward to it. All right. And are you in a group right now, or you're still feeling it out? And that's okay too. That's okay. And that's okay. And that would have been under other, but that's fine. So if you want to take your seats, we're going to have a little discussion about what you've seen thus far. You just like to eat. All foods are welcome. All right. So as you're taking your seats, I want you to start thinking about some of these things. And of course, like I said before, I like people to talk back to me. So if not, I'll start picking. All right. So what are some observations that you made during this exercise? What are some things that was shocking to you, or some things that you just expected to see? Okay. How did that make you feel to stay in one place all the time? But why do you think that was? Was it because it's more comfortable, or why do you think so? Okay. Just the way it was. Okay. All right. Anybody else had any other observations that they noticed as people were moving, or as yourself was moving or not moving? Okay. So you saw some people were all over the map, so to speak. Okay. Why do you think that was? Okay, so exposures. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Tough crowd. Uh, okay, so how did that make you feel? No, there's no right or wrong answer. No right or wrong answer here. We're just the purposes of all our activities this afternoon is really just to bring awareness. When you are aware of something, it changes your decision-making process as you peruse through your day. So there's not, because you stayed in one corner, that's wrong. That's your experience as you have stated. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to come out of that comfort zone, because sometimes we have misunderstandings because we just don't understand, and it's not because one is wrong, one is right. It's just we just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Yes.
I learned that Becky and I have a lot of similar likes.
Okay.
You know, like food and who cuts our hair and things like that.
Okay. And right. All right. So was anyone surprised by what they saw? Was it pretty much expected? More or less? Okay. What were some surprises you saw?
Just some of the groups that people chose, and it was surprising to see how many different groups people were in.
Okay.
Even it really didn't matter. There was a couple exceptions, but I think a lot of us had experiences from a few different groups that
So how do these relationships impact you as a member of this church? And I might have my husband pipe in here or there.
The church is made up of different groups.
Uh-huh.
And hopefully you have experiences or you have interactions with these different groups in order to understand them.
Okay. Does it change your thinking when either dealing or advocating for another group? Okay, and I like the term you use, appreciate. Yes, I do appreciate that term. No pun intended. All right. So was there a difference in doing this activity as a person of color versus someone white? Do you think there was any differences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a person of color will probably have more experiences with people of color, and somebody that's white will probably have more experiences with people that are white.
Okay.
Well, like, I don't know if people of color to me is the right word.
Okay.
Maybe it's the ethnic background. It's because they could be of color, but they may not never associate with somebody that may associate with this other group of
Mm-hmm.
people. So,
I think you brought up an excellent point. So again, okay, I'm going to use this, and you'll hear a lot of my examples will be more of from a personal point of view, because I don't like to pick on any group in particular. But that can be true even amongst the black community, because you have your Caribbean blacks, you have your African American or black, however you want to identify yourself. You have Africans. Same can hold true for Hispanics, those that are from Latin America. I mean, we tend to lump them all in one basket, but does that necessarily mean what they are? Let's even take our over here. You have your East Asians, your Southeast Asians, your South Asians. True? Yes? And we all have different experiences based upon, our backgrounds, the foods we ate, different things. But that's what made us who we are, and that's what makes us unique. So it's just important to start thinking about those things. So I had a take-home point to help us realize that there are people in our lives that play important roles, and it forces us to look at the type of people we rely on for expertise, guidance, role modeling, or social interactions. The goal of knowing this information is not to go find, say, oh, now because people were watching me and I was in one group, I got to pick a Hispanic doctor now all of a sudden. That... What it really is, we're not asking you to change who you admire. That's you. That's what makes you you. But rather just to really raise an awareness so that you can have empathy about the person that you're coming in contact. What is my interaction going to look like when I see this person? Is it based upon what I was taught as a child, what I see through media, what I see or hear on the radio? No, it has to be an individual basis, because just because I'm talking to him, guess what? It might be a totally different experience when I'm talking to you. Does that make sense? All right. Any thoughts? Any feedback? Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna come scoop you up.
I can imagine how that went. Right.
On that I said, it was just something natural that just came out. And I had to think about it. I was like,
And that can be taken so many ways.
Right.
And it's funny you said that. So I'll probably give you another example that'll be along those same lines. This training that I do here tends to be a little bit more extensive. You are receiving kind of a condensed version of it. But there was one aspect about words that we say that can be taken so many ways, i.e. what you just mentioned. But one of the words that I had them look at, and I had them separated out into groups, and I said, what is getting the itis? And of course, mind you, I work for a medical entity, and so of course everybody was like, some kind of inflammation. And I'm thinking, oh wow. No, sometimes it just means I'm exhausted and I'm tired after getting a full plate of food, and now I'm sleepy and I got the itis, But it all depends on context, What might be offensive to one might not seem as nothing to another person, but you always have to remember, okay, who's my audience? Be mindful. Who's my audience? All right. Anybody else have anything else to add? Okay. Well, we'll move. How's my time looking? About 5 minutes? Okay. Well, that'll give us some extra time on our other projects. So for our next one, I get to see what great artists you are. So if you'll hand out one of those. And I'm going to split you up into groups of, well, we have an odd number here unless my husband wants to join in. But we have about 5 people on this side and we have 4 on this side. You sure? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Let me see if I can pull this out. And I'm trying to do this without showing it. I'm sorry?
If we do it, we're going to cheat.
Okay, yeah, don't cheat. Cheating's not nice. All right. All right, so if you could somehow kind of get in somewhat of a circle, I mean, you don't have to change the rows around, but as long as there's kind of like where you can kind of talk amongst each other, because you guys are kind of in this linear pattern here, right here. So if you can maybe get on another row where somewhere, not too close, of course, still social distance. We're loving our neighbor. All right. Yeah. If you want to put it where, because I'm going to have somebody kind of be the leader in each group, and so I kind of need what I'm about to give you not be seen by the rest of the group. So pick a leader. Pick a leader in your groups, please. Everybody's pointing at you. Tag your it. Pick on the newbie. Who we're picking over here? Okay. All right. So let's see how I can do this without showing what it is. All right. I'm going to allow you, since you're walking in, you can pick a group. All right. Any group. Okay, that's fine. All right. If you want to just have a seat. Oh, did you have a drawing paper? Let me get one too. Okay. You're welcome. All right, we'll let her get settled in. And you said your name was Michael? Okay, so Michael, please hold on to this paper. Do not let anyone see it.
Sorry.
All right. Do you? Don't want you to see it. No. All right, hold it to the chest because I don't want anybody to see it until we're ready to talk about it. Who did we decide on this side? All right. He's looking at me with like a deer caught in headlights, but it's okay. All right. All right, so what I would like for you to do, don't let anyone see it. All right, be careful. No cheating. All right, I'm going to give you some instructions here in just a few minutes. And you'll see me kind of walking around the room because I'm nosy. All right, so we've already divided into groups. What you have in your hand is a picture that I would like for you to describe to your group. You are not allowed to tell them what the picture is of. Your group members are not allowed to ask you any questions. They are only to follow your instructions. You can tell them, hey, draw a circle 3 inches from the left border. Draw a triangle underneath it. That's how you will choose to describe it to your group members. You are not allowed to tell them what you have in front of you. I will give you about 3 minutes to describe what it is in front of you. And of course, I'm going to be looking at your pictures and laughing, but that's okay. We're laughing in love. All right. If my timekeeper can let me know when my time will start, and we'll give you 3 minutes to do such. Now, before we do, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Silence means you're good. Question. Wait, hold on. I got a question. Yes. You draw what you hear. No cheating. No cheating. You draw what you hear. And this is where you get to be the boss. You tell them what you want. Okay, no cheating. All right. Ready? Okay, don't hold the picture where they can see it now. If you have to move back a chair, go ahead and move back a chair. But talk up where they can hear you.
Here we go.
All ready? Time.
2, begin. 3 minutes.
circles on top of each other going up. About 3/8 of an inch in diameter.
Nope, nope, he's not allowed to repeat. You need to listen. You need to listen.
Okay, on the third circle from the bottom, on the right-hand side, draw an egg. Third circle from the bottom, right-hand side, draw an oblong egg. Connecting to the circle, the little circle.
To the square, but
On the left-hand side, right across
the
from it,
like a border,
draw another egg, oblong,
quarter of an inch into, to the top
right on top of it.
of each square.
The fourth and fifth circle,
Um,
the
under
oblong
the square,
egg
draw
going upward.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little circles.
Same with the opposite side of the small circle.
6 circles. 1, 2, 3,
On top of the small circle, top of the small circle, draw a 1-inch square.
not a circle, but it's kind of like. Yeah, oval. Yeah. So, and the 6 circles are below each other.
On top of the 1-inch square, going from, say, a quarter of an inch from the right, draw a rod.
I'm not supposed to watch your drawing? Okay, I'm gonna stop watching.
Yeah, you cannot coax them, and they cannot ask you any questions, and you cannot repeat yourself.
Okay, alright.
Once you've said it, that's
so
it.
I'm not gonna repeat myself again. So you have to draw an oval
At the end of the
at like a
rod,
90-degree
draw a
angle coming
quarter-inch
down.
circle.
To like the third circle.
From the left
So oval,
side of the square,
one oval coming to like about a
draw
90 degree.
another rod going off.
How much time do we have, timekeeper?
And then
And at the end of that, draw a quarter-inch circle.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Like we have.
No questions asked. No questions asked. Cannot ask any questions. No cheating.
Well, don't say.
Coming from that third circle again, there's an oval coming down 45 degrees from that third circle.
10 seconds more. You have 10 seconds to ask questions. All right, time. All right, I'm going to ask my two describers to come up front for me, please. One right here, one right here. Oh, extra mic, yes, please.
Oh my God.
All right. All right. Now, I'm a little curious. Okay, if we can get, hopefully you guys can see over there. I know it's a little far away, but can you hold up your pictures so we can see? Oh, wow. I wish the people at home could see what you guys are drawing. Oh, my. Don't say a word. Don't say a word, sir. Don't say one word. So we're allowing the people at home to kind of see what it is you guys have drawn.
This is Reggie's.
We have artists in the making. We just don't know. All right. So will my two descripting people show them what they should have been drawing?
Let me apologize. Let me apologize for.
Okay. So we have two people that came pretty close. So we have Tanya over here that came pretty close, and I'm sorry I didn't get to catch your name. Julia? Okay. So we have two people that came pretty close. So let me ask you, why do you think, I'm going to ask the both of you, why do you think you were able to get that close, even with not asking questions?
Oh my gosh.
So,
Crazy. That is.
so I have a question with that. So doesn't that happen with communication? If you didn't quite hear what somebody told you, you go and you listen and see what else somebody else did and heard? Okay, why do you think you came so close? So in other words, good listening skills. Okay, okay. Interesting. All right. Okay, so does that not happen with communication? You'll have some
That's my wife.
so that was selective not listening, huh?
I tell her that all the time.
Was that selective, ma'am? So that does happen with communication where sometimes you just kind of shut down because either you didn't hear, because I heard because of the distance they couldn't hear. So sometimes we'll just, you know what, I didn't hear it, oh well. How does that play on our communication with one another? All right. How was it? Was there any confusion? Was there anything that was confusing for you?
Yes, everything.
Okay. Everything like what? Everything like what? Talk to me.
Well, you know, I mean, I had to try to, as you said, give them instructions, not be able to repeat it, not be able to tell them, hey, you didn't put that circle in the right place, you know, and so you kind of really had to think on your feet to be able to articulate it in a way that they'll understand and that they'll be able to follow the instructions, and that was pretty difficult off the bat, you know, not having any prep time to be like, what's the best way to approach this thing, you know, and how could I make it simple enough for them to be able to understand. So it was hard trying to figure out the instructions, knowing that there were so many limitations to how you could communicate basically to them.
Now let's look at that in the context of the church. You have leaders that are trying to give you information, and it can be frustrating for them if they don't feel like the messaging that they're trying to send to you is not being well received for whatever the reason. And you heard what he said, I had to think of a way for them to be able to grasp what I was saying and not being able to get that feedback. Because sometimes we as church members, we sit in the seat and we just kind of look. Well, if I was up there, I would have been doing this, you know, but we don't verbalize that. So a lot of the times there's a lot of miscommunication. Does that make sense? Okay, so now that we got your take on it, let me give you the mic, and I want to hear your take on it.
Well, I had a bunch of non-listeners.
That happens. That happens.
She listened to Michael. She doesn't. I thought
You be nice that you got to see them next week.
I thought going to the saying at the bottom of the page, go to the middle and then go up a half an inch and start your 6 circles.
Okay.
Should have got them close to the bottom of the page in the middle, going up with the 6 circles.
Was that frustrating for you?
But it did. Well, I didn't know they didn't do that just now.
Okay.
But no, it's hard to communicate, especially to communicate with one of these on.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
You when people talk, sometimes it's not the fact that they didn't hear, it's the fact that they didn't understand what you said.
Okay. So you brought up a good point. You said these barriers in place. So what are some barriers that we come across as church members when we're communicating with one another? What kind of noise? Be more specific.
Sometimes they already have interpreted what you said as something else even.
So preconceived ideas. They've already come with their mind set in one way, and you're trying to veer them a whole nother path. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to respond to that?
I think a lot with our background.
Okay. That can be an obstacle.
You know, depending on where we're from. You know, one thing like I mentioned earlier, you know, when I mentioned to Miss Phillips that I'm gonna scoop her up. You know, I mean, that's something she probably wasn't used to hearing.
Mhm.
That someone is gonna
Pick you up. Mm-hmm.
turn and pick you up. And,
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Time? Okay. Time limitations, definitely. Do you want to expound on that a little bit more, or just?
Well, everybody's hurrying. Everybody, doesn't have time to talk with each other. I mean, even in the church context, there's a bunch of people around. You can't talk to everybody,
Okay.
or at least you can't talk to everybody and do them justice. And so, and to really get them out of the necklace, and that's what it takes.
Okay. So time limitations. Yes, sir.
Vocabulary and body language.
Vocabulary and body language. Very, very important.
Because vocabulary, I may say a certain word. It might mean one thing to me,
Mm-hmm.
but to Michael it means something else, and to Reggie it might mean something completely different altogether.
Correct.
And so when I say word, they each have a mental idea, but the miscommunication's right there.
All right. What if I came to you like this? Now I'm comfortable like this. This is my comfort position, honestly, and I'm being honest. But somebody might take it as, oh, she's not hearing what I want her to
She's
hear.
being defensive.
She's being defensive, or she's hiding.
Wall herself off.
Very good. So I even have to be cognizant to get myself out of that position because that's my fall back to. All right. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he actually gave you too much information. So he's telling on himself. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you both teams a chance to redeem yourself. You have the option to pick the same two people as your leader to describe to you what picture they will have in their hand, because now they have the feedback of what you would like to hear. And I will now give you the opportunity to this time ask questions. Now, would you like to keep the same person here? Give him another chance? That's for the team to decide. That's for the team to decide. And over here, would you like to keep the same person? Okay, they're so forgiving. Second chances. Second chance. He says, do they want to be kept? All right, so tag your it. Here's your second picture.
Oh my gosh. You guys should have room on your paper.
Yeah, if you turn to the other half, there should be room to draw. What did we decide on this side? All right, make sure no one sees your picture. All right, keep it that way. And like I said before, this time you can ask questions. Okay, and we're going to give you the same time limit as we did before. Okay, ready? Anybody have questions? All right, timekeeper, let us know.
All right, 3, 2, 1, begin.
Okay, do we need to let up from the bottom? So, 3 semicircles or 4 semicircles. Start with a big, about a 4 inch and then go up. The whole thing is like about quarter of an inch. More than that. A little bit closer to the top than to the bottom.
I asked you that. Yes, I know, and I'm looking at the picture now, and I'm like, it does look like there's a little bit more. The smaller circle is a little bit closer to the top than the bottom, but it's not that.
And remember, you can ask questions, so don't be afraid or bashful to ask questions.
And so, I would say, that
And then from that smaller circle, kind of like a rectangle about 2 inches high. It goes all the way over to the end of the right circle.
You're not doing it? I have questions for you.
Go straight up about 2.5 inches. Oh. And just go straight up about 2.5 inches. Not 2.5, I mean inch and a half. From the inside of the left circle, go straight up. There's just a straight line. Okay, and on the right side, the right circle, the left side of the right circle, do the line straight up the same length as the other side.
Okay, time. We're finished. 3 minutes. All right. Be so kind. Can I see your pictures this time around? Oh, wow. There's a... Okay. Okay. Not bad.
A lot more explaining,
Okay.
trying to make sure that everybody
Can I see your
got it.
picture?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask my describers if you can please hold up your picture. Okay, so do you see where your pictures are getting a little bit closer? I mean, granted, if we had more time, you probably would have gotten the picture this time around. And what did you find was the difference this time around? Being able to communicate with the describer, yes. Oh, this group over here, I heard y'all ask a million questions. Oh my goodness. I was like, I mean, almost to the point where I was like, oh, they're never going to get that picture done. But I like the fact that you were communicating. So that was important. However, I'm going to pick on you because I noticed you gave up early. So talk to me. Why did you give up? Was it because... Uh-huh.
He was too fast.
He was too fast. What about this time around where he kind of took it, slowed it down a bit?
I guess I could have done it, but
Why did you choose not to do it? Yes, I'm picking on
I
you.
just gave up.
Okay. But again, that's reality. That happens. Think about when we communicate. Sometimes it's just we don't feel like it's worth the energy at this point. Not picking on you, and please don't take it that way. I'm just trying to bring out some realities of things that happen when we communicate with one another. I'm guilty of it as well. All right, what about over here? Anything? You've been pretty quiet, Tanya. I'm picking. Yes, a little water, please.
Nothing to add.
You did better this time. Why do you think you did better this time?
Because he knew what he kind of not did good the first time, and so he was trying to do
So
a
it's
little bit
your
better
fault.
this time. And then also he had people asking him questions, and so he was able to kind of fine tune.
Okay. As the describers, how did you like the feedback you were getting from those that were listening to you this time? Because last time you said, I have a bunch of people that don't like to listen. So how did you feel this time?
No, it was good. I mean, they asked questions, and I tried to answer them the best I could. So
Okay.
we were getting there. We were just a little slower.
That's okay. That's okay. How did you feel?
I think he's getting a lot of exercise, but besides that. No, as
Oh, I thought you were gonna bring
as Richard said, it took a little longer, but I think you got the opportunity to fine tune what you were saying. So I think that gave everybody the opportunity to give feedback, and then like, okay, this is what they thought when I said to do this. So like maybe I need to say it in a different way so that they could understand what I'm trying to say, because what I said the first time was maybe ambiguous, or maybe, you know, not enough detail, or, you know, so I was able to kind of fine tune the instructions to be like, no, not quite like that, maybe like this, or, you know, add some more description to it and try to flesh it out a little bit.
So let me ask someone in this group. Do you think if you were told ahead of time what the picture was, do you think it would have been even that much easier to draw? Okay. Because you have kind of a clear goal in front of you. So those are the things that we need to kind of be mindful of, even when we're talking about you know, projects that we're wanting to do within the church. Stating your vision, so to speak, so that it's clear from the onset. You know, hey, this is what I would like to see happen on XYZ program. This is who I would like to include in XYZ program. This is who I would like to reach in XYZ program. This is how I plan to do it in XYZ program. See how clear that is? And then if it's not clear, I'm giving you an opportunity to get your feedback, because there's always room to tweak something. Because maybe there's things that I'm not thinking about that someone can add their perspective to. Does that make sense? All right. So the take home for that is that there are differences between how people give, hear, and process information. This can be influenced by culture, by age, gender. Sometimes it may be hard to give clear instructions and listen well. And that's hence why I gave you one time to listen to instructions, because a lot of times we already have a response before we even heard what was said. It also shows us how things can be easily misunderstood and misinterpreted. Those differences may not be wrong, but how we choose to engage in that communication process can make all the difference. Relate this process when communicating with others. Is your message always clear? Is there a channel to give and receive feedback? And what noise was present that affects the message that you're trying to give? Think about this in your interactions when you're talking to church members during board meetings, when you're providing instructions in front of the class for Sabbath school, during church service, your personal interactions after the church service, outside, in the parking lot, in the foyer. There's something to think about. And it doesn't have to be here. This can be within your own families, within your workspace, in the marketplace. All right, for our last event, and then I'll reserve the ending time for any questions that you may have. And I did get an email with some questions that the church did have. Hold on, I was looking for my little papers. Oh, they're here in the front. There we go. And I'm almost tempted to read it to you, because I think I made a couple of typos with a couple of things here, so I don't want you to think too badly of me. All right, so I may read it. If it's a problem, I'll hand it over. Not a problem. But scenario 1, if you can listen, and I want you to discuss amongst your group. Okay. So the first scenario reads, you are in a bathroom stall, lunch gone bad. 2 church members who do not realize you are there come in, and they start to talk about the meeting they just left. They begin to talk, and you hear, this church is filthy. Don't they know how to clean up around here? Can't the church find some good help anymore? Why do we have to keep using brother so-and-so? We need to stop using church members and hire a company. My kids can clean better. They are just not smart enough to clean. They probably can't even read the labels. Let's hope their green card expires soon. What would you do? Talk. Lunch gone bad. Potluck went bad. What would you do? Okay, talk amongst your group. That is true. You go in and you come out quickly. 15 minutes for the first scenario.
His brother so-and-so one that's got emotional effect. I don't know. You can probably ask that. Are you friends with brother so-and-so? I would just say so. That's just my wife. Her rally runs a lot faster than her time.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say nothing. I would definitely let them know. They would know I'm in. Someone know me here. I'll let them, someone know me here.
See, that, I'd like to ask you about the situation. And, it did not get that far. And I can explain them. And it was not a very close. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't change it. Yeah, we simply can't. But I mean, if there were, I mean, I would say in general, people were kind of things that think that maybe you're not stressed. Everybody listening, you just stressed out like that more. Right? If you're having a conversation, you're saying those kind of things. You say just, it might bring people to your presence, so they're going to go over or observe about their expression. People are helping when I'm I'm glad that people don't jump on me about it, but I just letting them know that it's all right, guys, I'm here, you know. They're not just let off one of that. Yeah, well, and the other thing too, if you let them know when they first start talking about the meeting, that somebody's there, that you've never gotten their really greeting card issue, you know, so that would be, I think that'd be a plus for the situation. It's not, whether the people that are cleaning, they have to restart, because they might have lived here all their life. And it, you know, they don't, and they may say that, would still say that, but they don't know who's actually cleaning the church. They're just talking. Yeah. They're just, yeah, they're making assumptions.
Assuming something.
Yeah. My brother so-and-so may very well have a green card, they just don't know.
Workshops or something, you know, like this, help people understand, because a lot of times that is because of ignorance.
Yeah.
So if anything, all providers need to get a.
However, if it's one of these two.
But it's like, we came in, of course, we gave a whole paper, but I didn't understand any of the stuff. I got Filipino wife, I got Hispanic doctor, I don't have a barber, so to speak, so whoever is the next in line, if we cut my hair, and it's been everybody.
Hey, pardon the master, but,
Last time I wrote this, I was raised with my aunt and uncle on my left side, which is your wife. Whoa!
I'm sorry. If somebody riles me up, I'm
I
not
will
afraid to
admit
step on toes.
that sometimes when I see something that's not right, I'll say
Here's my
something,
sister, I'm
and
sorry.
I may say it to somebody in charge. That somebody else might have overheard. You know, I don't know, but
About 5 minutes, 45 seconds.
it might offend whoever heard it, but I'm not talking to somebody on my equal, that this is who I'm talking to somebody in charge. That
Anyway, you know what?
this is what I saw or how I feel or whatever. And so it's not like
we have an accepted way of doing that.
And they're actually going through say a chain of command, but you don't know that. You think
That's actually ruined our house.
What's
You
really
don't like
going
when
on.
something's being done, you just inherited it.
That's right.
Oh.
Kind of went along with it. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. Yeah, you did right, and it just goes back to, I mean, you was in the service.
Yeah.
That assume, you already know what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it goes back, you know, when you break it down, ASSUMP.
Yeah.
You know?
But it
You-
means.
you- you understand what I'm saying? And I mean, it's
You
just.
caught you on tape for the whole world.
I'll let you forget that.
But it's just, you know, that's something that we have to be conscious of, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody's immune to it at some part in their life. If they haven't said, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, or, oh, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. And like I said a moment ago, the way you say things sometimes makes it a whole lot worse than just say it. Because of how you said it.
I think it's real easy to count on that kind of situation, like have this right communication. And then really come down on them, and a lot of times that's not gonna solve the situation. But I mean, just giving people a chance to open up the conversation. People will say stuff like that a lot of times. Maybe they mean it, maybe they don't, I don't know. But the impeachment is not actually on there. It's about the way you educate your life, not feeling more like it's, something that's going to have a positive solution. There is a place for going off steam, but it also is, you kind of got to clear it like this, right? You're blowing off your steam to him, because the fact that we're this whole church, and I was first
And it,
over there,
I think,
and there was one time where
if people do hear something that they think was said,
they missed a few things.
but they're really just not sure, or they really, in their mind, this is what they said. Well, I think they should go and talk to the pastor, or wherever you're at, if you're involved, and say, you know, I think this is what I heard.
What did you mean by it?
Yeah, what did you mean by it? Exactly, what did you mean by it? So, that way you're not, being mad about something that could have been explained away for a long time, and you're not just mad at that person, but you're mad at everybody that associates to that person. You know, cause you think they all think alike.
You know, and I think also, like what you're saying, because I recall once a friend of mine who was raised in the village, certain things meant certain things. But here in the States, certain things didn't mean that.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, and I just recall, at first, before I got to know him, I recall he used to come to me, he's like, Joe, man, what do you mean by that? You know, because I take that offensive. And I was like, "Oh,
1 minute.
man, that's not, you know, that's just, you know, how we talk, you know, me and, you know, maybe the neighborhood, you know, that's neighborhood conversation. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay. So you meant, you know, and like you just said, I had to clarify those things, and I really appreciated that. Because, you know, then I understood that, you know, it wasn't, you know, maybe some of the slang talk that I might be talking.
Well, I'm not sure she's fixing to say something, if she's gonna go that night.
Well, no. No, you still had a few seconds left, and I was allowing you to finish your statement. You're good. that mean, do I? All right. Were you done with your statement? You sure? Okay. All right. So, first and foremost, what were your initial reactions to the scenario when it was read to you? How did you feel? Did any kind of emotions stir up in you when you heard it? Hurtful, angry. What else? Indignation. Very good responses. Anybody else?
Well, I'm agreeing with all of them.
Okay. What was your initial emotion or reaction, whether it was verbal, nonverbal? How did you feel
About what?
about the scenario when it was read to you? How
Oh.
did that make you feel?
I'm not real sure. I'll
Okay.
be honest with you. I'm not sure.
That's okay, because it could be a whole convolution of different types of emotions, and you just don't know how to put a finger on it. So that's possible too. Anyone else? Yes.
But for me, it was like that could have been my family they're talking about. So
Okay.
It was like it was personal. It was like, well, I've heard that in the past said about someone who I think you know. So for
Mhm.
me, it was like almost protective mode. You know, kind of
Okay.
like you want to protect your own.
So you felt protective. So I've heard hurtful, angry, indignation. I don't know how to feel, and you felt personal, like it was a personal thing to you. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I would have been surprised that someone would have came in while I was in the bathroom, and you know, and they come in there. And,
You can't
know,
get past the bathroom part.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would have been surprised, like, whoa, you coming in
Well,
here behind me?
let me clarify the scenario. They may not have known you were in there. So, yeah, we're thinking that they smelled something, but that might not necessarily been the case. You could have just been really quiet, and they could have been talking, thinking they were talking privately. All right. So y'all kind of took it in a whole left field, but but that's okay. What about? Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'll clarify. You're right. You're right. Okay. Anything else? I have two more members over here I didn't hear from, and I didn't hear from you as well. Okay, so I heard from him. He felt angry. I didn't hear from his sister or you.
I was angry.
You were angry too. Okay. Michael?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not something nice to hear, so you don't feel good at all.
Okay.
I mean, you don't feel good too that they're not bringing it up to the right, the right people,
Okay.
you know. So is that a bad reflection on leadership because they don't want to bring it up to them and they just want to talk about it between themselves? That's where my trend of thought was kind of going.
Okay. What did you think? Discrimination. Okay, that can pretty much sum it up. So let me ask you this. What were some very blatant or implied stereotypes that you noticed in this scenario? Green card. So they were assuming they weren't here legally. Okay.
I
Go
said
ahead.
green card.
Okay.
What if the two people that were talking, they had the green card too? Okay.
It's quite
And
possible.
So the scenario is, okay, was it two white people and a
No,
white
I didn't
person?
specify. I
That's
left
right.
it open to interpretation.
Yeah.
So two church
And so-
members.
And they were one in there already,
Hmm.
but they could have all been,
Quite possible.
yeah, they could have all
Absolutely.
been actually friends, but the one overheard what was going on and didn't want to say nothing because of the bad lunch, because they didn't want to know who was in there.
Okay. We're back into the bad lunch. I'm gonna leave that out of the scenario next time, but go ahead.
I think for me, it's the assumption that by giving that job to a church member, it wasn't being professionally done.
Okay, that's a
So-
stereotype we tend to think. Don't give things to church members because you know what kind of workload we're gonna get. Go ahead.
Yeah. Or that even the problem was because of them. So they're thinking the problem is because of them, or it could just be the church members.
Okay.
Or, not really the cleaning people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, these are great answers. Uh, See, I thought I had a tough crowd. Y'all were just needing to warm up. Okay, go ahead. Anything else over here?
The lack of context being put in there.
Okay.
Completely lack of context. I was telling this group about a time when I was first deacon at our other location,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed something hadn't been done by my other deacons on their rotation, and I kindly inquired what happened. Then he explained about a family emergency came, couldn't communicate. This is back before we had cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the communication wasn't there, but it was communicated to me that they that somebody fell down on the job, and I was able to provide them context.
Okay.
You know, but it gets back to another point, and that's the passive aggressive, willing to talk bad about somebody else without dealing with it constructively.
So I like what you just said there. So as church members, we always want to think about Matthew 18, going to your brother
That's
and
right.
speaking to them first. So I like the fact that you said sometimes knowing the context of what's going on would clear up a lot of miscommunications. You see how all these events are kind of tying into these activities we're doing? Okay. Anything
Yeah.
else?
And it's society in general wants to play this passive aggressive game.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what label you put on that group. They don't want to confront somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
even within their group. So you got to get past this and say, okay, let's deal with it maturely and constructively.
So I heard something in your group that I want to kind of pick on a little bit. If this happened in a public place versus a private place, would you respond? Why or why not? And what are some, I can ask this question, but we can reserve it as a part 2. What would make you reluctant to speak out on these things? Because I heard, partially in this group that I would just nip it in the bud right there on the spot. I'm probably summarizing. But, others were saying I'd have to bite my tongue and wait a minute because maybe they have to get themselves in check because they're so angry right now. I just need to calm down before I speak out. Okay, so talk to me. Talk to me. Oh. Who's going first? Okay.
Said on that, if you was in a public,
Mm-hmm.
you really don't know who that person is that on the other side. So it's not like
So let me clarify. When I say public, so private in this scenario was they were in the bathroom thinking they were alone.
okay.
Public could be up front, something said that shouldn't have been said. In public could be in the foyer. You overheard a conversation.
Oh, okay, I got you now.
Okay. I'm trying to tie it all back to the church. All roads lead home.
Still gonna say something, or now that we have clarification, you gotta?
I'm the one that wanders into the minefields and regardless of the situation.
Okay.
Um,
Tell me
No.
why.
Tell me why.
Why would you? Why do you feel the need to do it right then, right there?
Because if it isn't addressed right then, right there, then people get the idea they can continue this kind of behavior and talking on
Okay.
and on and on.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some context, all right? The confrontation doesn't have to be fire and brimstone, but it does
like
have to take place on the spot. Now, I may walk out of the stall after being, tossing the lunch
Lunch gone
there
bad.
and turn around and find out, oh, it's my head deacon and head elder doing this. Oh, I'm just a layman. Do I confront my church leaders about this? Yes.
Okay.
Just because we have a rank doesn't mean that we're immune to being admonished or rebuked by a layman. Because right is right and wrong is wrong.
Love it. Anybody want to respond to that?
Well, I guess who determines what's right and who determines what's wrong? So, I mean, it's like when you're having that conversation,
Well, I
You
think
know.
people, the fact that you had to hide in a small space where you thought no one was going to be, you
Mhm.
kind of knew there was something wrong about that conversation, why it needed to be held in close confidence. Think about that. We know, we know. We might not say we know, but we know.
I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate to
I
say
know.
that, people, it's relative. It's relative. I mean, it really depends. And some people do it publicly and they think that what they're saying is right. So how do you approach somebody that's doing it in public or in private, and they think that they're right. And so, you know, just throwing that monkey wrench in there.
So you brought up Matthew 18, and the whole idea, or the point of Matthew 18 is reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going to confront somebody like right then and right there, while they're like steam coming out of their ears and everything like that, that's going to probably put them on the defensive. And whenever you like just come out stomping around and telling people that they're wrong, they will grind in their heels and push back.
Okay.
And you probably won't get anywhere. And so I would be pretty irritated, although I would probably want to say, let's wait until we've got a situation where I can talk with them individually and say, okay, what was going on here? I overheard this. I just want to ask what you meant by that, and give them a chance to say it again with them knowing you were there,
Mm-hmm.
and have them explain it. Because, especially if it's somebody that I knew that like is a professed Christian, and I thought that they said something or did something unchristian. Well, hear them out first and let them see about it. And a lot of times people will backpedal when they're thinking in the right mind, so to speak, and give them a chance to say something about it.
So I think you both brought up good points. So yes, it always pays to speak up and say something about it and to nip it. But there's also wise counsel. Sometimes you need to stop, take a step back, because you might not be in the frame of mind to address that subject matter at that time. Just like what he says, people would dig in their heels because now you're calling them out. Sometimes it just takes, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, of course, with me being up front, sometimes my mind goes blank. So we rely on our other half to help us out here.
Vanna?
I'm sorry? Tact, yes. You can use tact, but allowing the Lord to give you the words to say in that particular moment. What's going to speak to that person's heart so that, yes, they're not necessarily, they're being reprimanded, but they're doing it in love and understanding. Does that make sense? Because then we can be just as wrong in the way that we come back at them. You got to do it in love, okay? Love and mercy.
No, I just want to say I've done that before as a pastor,
Mhm.
and totally, when I know that I should have not responded right when I heard something, and
Okay.
it just came out, "Ah!" And instead of dealing with the issue, now I'm dealing with a relationship with them. And so I've had to learn, I'm still learning in some ways, how to control my tongue in that way, where it's the right time, right place, right way kind of a thing, but still addressing it, yeah.
And I like what you said about relationships. A lot of the times we kind of sometimes look at the church, oh, it's a business. In a sense, it can be. But it's really about relationships. Relationships between us and God and our relationship with our fellow man. Okay?
Well,
Go ahead.
I just was thinking about something that Ted brought up, and me being a new Adventist, I've heard that before, where you know, some more seasoned Adventists were complaining about something, and me being a newbie, it's like, how do I approach that?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You know, are they gonna listen to what I have to say? Are they gonna just say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Go sit down somewhere."
That's a good point.
To add to that, where this is a somewhat of a college church too. You know, you have a lot of people that are younger, but still a great wealth of wisdom and perspective. And but how do they approach, as he said, somebody in a leadership position, or somebody that's been a fourth generation Adventist, and tell them you know that what they said is wrong, even when you've tried to tact, you've tried to put it in a nice way. You probably, for want of a, sometimes they don't even have that courage to be able to say, to walk up to that person and say, hey, I really disagree with what you're saying. I really don't think what you said was right. And and it's unfortunate, but that's why you get into some of these other situations. I'm not saying that it's right, but it's like, who you gonna talk to? You don't feel comfortable talking to them. Sometimes you don't even feel comfortable talking to the leadership, because and so who do you you end up talking to your friend in the stall, about and not about that specific, but maybe the response to that.
Well,
you know.
I'm going to drag my husband in for a split second to kind of address both of those issues, because, you bring a good point, going to age disparities. Yes, we can sometimes tell our young people, hey, sit down, it's not your turn yet. Or in the case of a new believer, well, when you learn a little bit more, then we'll allow you to speak. So how can we address that?
Well, it's first of all, in the church, the hierarchy is one of our. I have these things called Adventist blind spots. We become very arrogant when it comes to certain things, and we have taken positions in churches, and we've had these positions for decades, and therefore we believe that we know what is best, we know what is right. But I want to just remind us of the story in John 4 where Jesus had to deal with this woman at the well and how he responded to it, and then also in how he dealt with Nicodemus. Nicodemus believed that he had all the knowledge necessary for salvation. And yet when he confronted Jesus and Jesus told him that you must be born again, he was like, how can I go into the womb of my mother and be born again? And Jesus is like, man, and I can imagine Jesus saying, man, are you dumb? No, you can't do that. But that's the sense of that if we think we have so much knowledge, we should always be willing to get more knowledge from whomever it comes from. We're grandparents now, and we have a grandson who's about to turn 2, and he's teaching us things that we never thought we would learn. His mind is very sharp, because we have to be in the sense of knowing that someone can drop something on us that we have never heard before. I can give you an example. Just this last February, we celebrated at the every year it is Black History Month. And in the conference office, it was my turn to share worship one Monday. And what I shared was the history of the Black Seventh-day Adventists. And the majority of the individuals in my office had no clue that there is a parallel history of Seventh-day Adventists, Black Seventh-day Adventists, from the beginning of Adventism. From the first person, Floyd, who had Floyd, who had a vision parallel with Ellen White, and John Loughborough wrote about this in the first book on Adventism history, and said that his message was the same message that was given to Ellen White, and just kind of going through the history. And when I was done with that, many of my colleagues came and said, man, I didn't even know. How come they don't teach this in school? And they said, these are the things that some of them could have said, that's not true. But they were willing to understand that there is a history that exists. And I think that is the same thing that we as Adventists, we need to stop and say, yes, God has given us the truths. He's given us these 28 fundamental beliefs. He's given us the sanctuary and investigative judgment. But that doesn't mean we can't learn anything from a Baptist or a Pentecostal. That doesn't mean that we need to take doctrines. Let me get that straight, because some people are like, well, we should now speak in tongues. Now, that's not what I said, okay? That's not what I said. Because our doctrines, a few of them were originated from other denominations. So we need to understand that that's a blind spot that we can have. And we need to be very careful, because when I started ministry almost 20 years ago, I made lots of mistakes. Oh my goodness, lots of mistakes. And one of them was not listening to young people. And I was a youth pastor. And my young people would tell me something, and I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, now I'm like, well, God can speak to the babies too, so let me listen. So we just have to be willing to take a moment and just learn from others. And I think that when we're talking about this whole diversity and inclusion, the diversity and inclusion that the world and the church has, they're similar in lots of things, but they're different in many other things. But one of the things that it keeps echoing in both channels is simply this: be willing to listen, be willing to learn, because that's where we find this beautiful aspect of life. And that's why the Adventist message, when you look at it, it says for every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. That three angels message speaks to everyone's heart, no matter the color of their skin, social, economic background, any of those things. It speaks to those things, and that's the beauty of it. So in essence, we just need to be willing to learn from even those who are young in the faith. We need to learn, because we have a blind spot. And that blind spot sometimes is like, well, cheese will kill you. And you telling that to someone who never heard that before? It's like, well, my mom lived for 400 years and she ate cheese every day. So that premise that you're saying is not true. And now you have to clarify. And then it becomes this big old thing of trying to come with all of this other stuff, when it's simply we can learn, and we need to be mindful of that blind spot.
So I just had a couple of take-homes with that, and I just wanted to kind of leave you with some thoughts. You should be always willing to speak the truth, whether it jeopardizes friendships, well, I don't want to say relationships, because again, I don't want to conflict with what I said earlier, because it is about relationships. But you should still not worry about the potential backlash. Not worry about saying that, oh, it's not my concern, it's not about me, I'm not personally involved. We should all want everyone to have an equitable experience when they walk through these doors, whether they're a stranger coming for the first time or somebody who's been here since this church started. I'm one of the old heads that's been here forever. It doesn't matter, but everyone should have and be able to experience that same experience. The take home here is, truth should always be said in love. Making excuses to avoid the issue robs us from the relationships that we want, one that is safe, one that is trusting. We may be quick to say, I'm not a racist, a sexist, I don't age discriminate, etc., but it's not the same as saying I am anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-whatever you want to put in that blank space. Silence is consent. Our failure to act can be just as damaging as what we say or what we do. Okay, just think on those things. All right, so I wanted to spend the last, say, 20 minutes or so just kind of answering some questions you guys had sent to us. And I just want to throw out some rhetorical questions. You don't have to answer. I mean, like I said, I'm not here to put anyone on the spot, but just something to think about. It says, are you an inclusive or an exclusive church? Why? Just think about it. Why did you join this particular church? And on a personal level, did you feel welcome when you did come the first time? How do you feel you are doing with your efforts to be inclusive? Are you intentional when you're reaching out to others? Where do your strengths and weaknesses lie? And who do you think may be having a positive or negative experience? And are you seeking out those people that might be shying in the back because they're too afraid to kind of step out into the sunshine? Just think about those for a minute. Let's see what God has to say about diversity. If I can have somebody, if you have your Bibles with you. And then I want to make sure we answer some of the questions that were sent in. So if you have your Bibles, if someone can look up Acts 17, 26 and 27. Someone else can look up Galatians 3, 28. I have Colossians 3, 11. And then, of course, Revelation 7, 9, and 10. Everybody have a smartphone?
Yeah. Everybody have the Bible on their phones. And you said Acts 17, 26 and 27?
Yes, I'll probably pull my phone out.
I mean, I could start with that one.
Which one do you have?
Acts 17, 26 and 27?
26 and 27, 17, yes.
Yes. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us.
Okay. Who has Galatians 3:28?
There is no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus.
Okay. And Colossians 3:11. Okay.
Actually, it'd be better if you backed up a verse on that one.
By all means, go ahead.
And have put on the new self, who is being renewed to the true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him, a renewal in which there is no distinction between Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free man, but Christ is all and in all.
And lastly, Revelation 7:9 and 10. Okay.
After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb.
Amen. And I think, he should have the final word on, what our take should be on diversity. He says it right there. There should be no difference. And, I like that he uses such an inclusive language when he's looking at all possibilities. We tend to compartmentalize, but God doesn't do that. All right, so there were a few questions that were sent in, and I don't know if we'll have time to answer all of them, but I'll try to grab a couple that kind of jumped out at us. One of the questions asked, some people view social injustice as terrible, but don't feel a sense of responsibility to prevent or fight against systems or beliefs that support such actions. As Christians, what role should we play when it comes to social injustice or any other discriminatory or prejudicial acts, especially when we are not direct targets of these actions? Why is it important to become an ally, and what does that look like? And I'm going to pull hubby up here again if he doesn't mind. I like picking on him. All right.
Well, it's kind of multiple questions here. As Christians, what role should we play in the social injustice or any other discriminatory or prejudicial act? Prejudicial act. Oh, it's one of them days today, boy. Oh, man. So I guess we have to ask ourselves, the simple question is, does the Adventist Church have a stance, and what is the Adventist history behind social justice and those things? The Adventist Church has always been lined with fighting social issues, but not all social issues. In the day there was the health reform when they dealt with tobacco, and then going back even further, there was also slavery when they talked about slavery. And if you read the writings of Uriah Smith and J.N. Andrews, and these are some of the pioneers, and even Ellen White herself, some of the things that they spoke about is that when they equated the Revelation 13, we talk about the mark of the beast, and we say that it is this and it is that. One of the things that they actually equated with the mark of the beast, Revelation 13, was the teachings or the belief of owning people or slavery. And so when they spoke about liberation and they talk about come out of Babylon, that was one of the things that they associated with it, is when you come out of Babylon, you come out of this and you come out of that, and also you give up slaves. And most people, don't necessarily know that that's the understanding of the pioneers, but it is very clear in their writings that they spoke about those things. As we move through history, we see that social issues do not become social issues until it affects the society in which it becomes a problem. In other words, when there was issues with Native Americans, then the church would step in and say something about it. When there were issues about Asian Americans, they would step in. When the internment, the Japanese internment after World War II, the church said something about it. Not only that, but then there were times in history where we said nothing about it. In Europe, we spoke nothing when fascism rose up. And that's why in Europe now there's a divided church. The Adventist church could not, they didn't feel that they could say anything during that time, and because of that, the church divided. Then all of a sudden you come into just small little conflicts and things like, trafficking, abortion and things like that. The Adventist Church has written all of these things out on the Adventist website. They're statements of what we believe. Social justice is nothing new. It is not new. But what we do not do is we don't align ourselves with organizations. We speak as a church. And when we speak as a church, we support those things that church members or church organizations or groups do within the church. The elephant in the room is, does the church believe in Black Lives Matter? The answer is yes, but not the organization. It believes in that. They've made a statement about that. And the reason I need to say this is because it's not the Black Lives Matter that you're thinking. It's not what you're thinking. The organization formed months and months and months after the saying was given. And the saying is that because there is an oppressed group at this moment, we feel that it matters that we say something about it.
So Proverbs 31, 8 and 9 reads as such. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all the unfortunate. And I'm reading from the North American Standards Bible, for the rights of the unfortunate. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the afflicted and needy. So we do have a mandate, even within scriptures, that we should be speaking out for those who don't have a voice for themselves, regardless of what that group or who that group is.
Yes. So remember when the Bible, Jesus spoke about the oppressed, he identified who they were. And his identification means that we should also identify. He said the poor, the orphan. He spoke against the church members, that the church leadership that did not, help those that were disenfranchised. So we have an obligation. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we picket? Does that mean that we go down on City Hall and join? That's not what we're saying, but that's also not, that's your right to do. In other words, we never condone violence in any of its forms, but we say that, listen, we have a whole group, a whole department at the General Conference, at the North American Division, and at most conference levels, it's to an extent called public affairs. And that's what they deal with. They deal with legislation that affects us as members. And they deal with legislation that affects churches and also human rights. So we have an obligation to speak to those things that really affect our membership. We do. But we do it in a way that is not, I guess in the best way that I can say this, we do it in a way that's going to be the most effective. The most effective. And that means that we as a church have to be willing, as personally, to be able to address certain things on our jobs, in church, as we were talking about how we're dealing with one another, how we speak to one another and listening to those things.
So how much of a devil's advocate can I be?
You could be, I don't know if the devil needs an advocate. But,
I say go ahead. I love it. Go ahead.
You said that before, didn't you? You said the devil's advocate.
I like to bring things, I try to bring it closer to home because I think it allows us to think a little bit more of how it impacts our congregation at large. Because if we always think of it as a problem of somebody else at another congregation or somewhere else in the country, we're like, oh, okay, but that's them. For us here in the state of Texas, I know in particular, immigration is an issue. We're worried. I won't say everyone, but some are worried, that others are crossing the border and doing other things. But then what is our take as church members? What should we be saying? Yes, you may be feeling one way or the other, and I'm not here to air anybody's thoughts on the issue, but we need to look at it from a church perspective. What should our voice be in that situation? I know,
Well, you know, there is, in the Bible speaks about sanctuary cities. You know, you thought that was only in California. No, the Bible speaks about sanctuary cities, and the way politicians view it is totally different with the Bible. The Bible views sanctuary cities as a place of refuge, cities of refuge. People would go to the city of refuge because they want to be safe. Their case may be pending somewhere, or whatever case may be. They may be oppressed. They may be, they may have killed someone, but their killing may have been an accident.
May have been, but nonetheless, they have the places for them to go.
Until. Correct. So, you know, as we call that, a mistake is a manslaughter. So they would go to these cities. So when we think about individuals who are crossing the borders, why are they crossing the borders? There's something that's causing them to cross the border. Many people say, well, there's drugs. We tend to lean towards that because that's an excuse that we can say that makes us feel better about it. But honestly, we have to think about it for a second. As a church, if someone is being oppressed, we can't tell them that they're not. We also should not break the law, but we should take care of those who are crossing. There is still a soul to be saved.
And probably about a few years ago, that saying would be okay. But now there's so many gangs that violently kill people that are coming in, and they've been proven that they came in to kill somebody.
You're talking about MS-19.
It don't matter, it's, you know, but it's
13,
true.
13. I know his
So
numbers.
you can't, you know, just say, oh, I got to help everybody. If they come to my door, I'm going to give them a place to sleep. You just can't do it.
Well,
And I'm going to ask you, if you had some guy come up to your door that was all dressed bad because he'd been coming across the border and knocked on your door and said, I need a place to sleep and something to eat now. You know, I
So-
mean, that's what we have to think about as individuals. You can say, yeah, the church should do this. And yes, the church should, but it should be done through the legal things. They shouldn't be coming across the border illegally, because there is people that come here illegally and did everything they were supposed to, and now they're coming and they're getting money, they're getting food, they're getting the shots that some other people were supposed to be getting. So all those things count too. You can't, it's not like, oh, this person's coming here. You know, we got to help him.
Yeah, I think we have a complex issue here. What you're describing is.
But you can't say it in general. It can't be a general. Oh, okay.
No,
It is complex.
it is a complex issue, but I think one of the things that we're kind of getting sidetracked on is the fact that whatever reason they're coming is, and I want to say this in a way that for whatever reason they're running from wherever they're coming from, there's things in place to deal with that. As a church, we don't say that they can't come in, and we don't say that they can come in. We go through the legal ways of helping them. That's why we have ADRA, that's why we have community service to help them.
Right.
Now, I will say this. The majority of the people that are coming over here are not
Well, yeah,
criminals.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't choose who to help and who's not to help. Now, if someone comes to my door, I'm not going to do anything illegal.
No,
I'm not going to do
my
that.
question was, he wants to come into your house and spend the night.
No,
Okay.
no, no. That's being illegal.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
Well, I think the thing is that if I'll put it this way, my mother has come to my house and stayed a week, and my wife was ready for her to leave. So this is someone we know. So I know. But you know, because this is someone we know. Someone I don't know, then they're not coming. So I'm just going to put it this way: is that it is a complicated issue, and yes, there are people who come legally. There are people who come, and our system is not a perfect system. There are people who are coming across the border. And now I need to say this because I think it's something it's often overlooked. Individuals cross our borders on all sides of the United States. But there is a group of individuals who come across the border who are given asylum without any issues. But there is the same group of individuals that may come from another island that is not given the same. They're turned away. So our system is not fair. When people came to Ellis Island, they were never turned away. Now, there's a reason why if people are coming from the southern border and why people are not being turned away from the northern border. There's several reasons that are political and all of these other things. And as a church, we don't get into those reasons because it's not up to us. I'm not going to, if someone comes over the border and they're bleeding from head to toe, I'm not going to say to them, oh man, listen, go back over and get some help, because that's not up to me. And it's also not up to me to say he could be an American citizen coming over. He could be a Mexican national coming over, whatever it is. I see someone in need. I will help them and do what I can. But I think that we have systems in place as a church that address our ability to help those that are in need. But I think where we need to be very careful is that we do not interject into someone's life that what may not be there.
All right. So I want to make sure we get to a couple more of these questions. One was read, it says, how do we empower our church to move towards becoming more appreciative of our existing diverse congregation, as well as becoming welcoming and inclusive of members from the community?
How come you didn't read that one right there about the traffic jams?
Because I didn't understand it.
So, you know, one of the reasons, I think one of the ways in which we can become welcoming and more inclusive is that I think this, from what I remember, when seeing a majority of your congregation here when we were outside, it's a very diverse community of members that are here or people that attend. But having diversity in the pews does not mean exclusiveness or inclusion within the church structure. So what I think it has to happen is that we used to do something that when we were at one of our churches in Dallas, when we were there, they did this thing called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And I know it's a little difficult right now, but we know that, you know, by God's grace, we will be able to get to some semblance of normalcy in a short time. But they would basically spread out people and pull names out of a hat pretty much and invite people who did not know each other and think to each other's home. And you didn't know who they were.
Let me give a caveat. So the person who was the host or hostess didn't have a clue who was coming to their house, and you yourself didn't know where you were going. You just followed the address. So you figured it out once you got there. And it may be somebody that you never talked to the whole time you've been going to that church. But it was a good way to learn about people who might sit on the left side of the church, because you always sit on the right side, you know. But it was so eye-opening, and even misconceptions that you had about somebody. Oh, they're always mean. They never smile. And you get them in their comfortableness of their home, and they just open up. So it was just a wonderful experience to get to know people and see them in another light.
You know, people thought that same way about me. They were like, I am, you know, former Marine, so it's like, you know, he's mean, he's this and that, da da da. And we ended up going to someone's house, and they were like, I never would have guessed that Pastor Dixon was like that. And it's because when you're in a different setting, when you're in church, we kind of have a certain way, a decor about ourselves. But when you get at home, you got your fluffy slippers on, your Argyle socks, you walking around, you know, and you comfortable. It's a whole nother side. Now, when I go places now and members that I've had in the past, various different backgrounds and things like that, we laugh, we joke. Why? Because it is that moment when you're taking people out of where they normally are and putting them in something different, and they talk, and you get to learn experiences. You can sit, and I can sit in any of your homes and talk about your past and how you grew up, and I guarantee you that when we're done with that conversation, the next time we see each other, we will feel like friends. That's the difference. And I think if you understand those kind of things and being more inclusive and welcoming community, that means that I remember you said something. You said that that's the way it was when you grew up. See, I don't know the way it was for her when she grew up. And she doesn't probably know the way it was for me when I grew up. But if we sat down and we talked about it, there will be some similarities. Because right now, I don't know if you're on social media, they put these things sometimes, do you remember when? And there was this thing that was a clothesline, and it had like a bag, and they said, like and comment if you know what this is. Now, I am in my 40s, but I remember that because my grandmother had one, and it was the thing that you put the clothespins in. My kids have no idea what a clothespins are. No idea. But I used to play with those things on the line. I just cited my grandmother, like, stop playing with those things, bring the clothes in. And you say, bring the clothes in. People are like, wait, bring the clothes in from where? Today. But those are things that there's certain generations that would be like, I remember. Those were good times. And then there are other times where as someone that's in their 40s, it's like, well, you remember this? My kids are looking at me like, what? And I think you said it, Hoop, there it is, that commercial. So there's a commercial where there's a group that's making ice cream, and we grew up with the group, and we know the song, but it's not about ice cream. And then there's a father and a wife, and the wife is there, and she's like, oh yeah, I remember that song. The husband walks in with the daughter, and the daughter's like our daughter's age, and the daughter's like, listen, and the guy's like, yeah. It's because it's those things that remind us, and that's what makes us laugh. When she said that, I had to get up laughing, because it's those things that reminds us of community.
Well, let me say one thing, and I'm going to talk kind of about the age disparity, because thinking about that same scenario, you'd be surprised, even though the young people seem in their own space and always on their phone and disconnected from everyone, if you get them in the right circumstance, again, going back from our experiences being him being a youth pastor, we used to have a ton of kids over to our house, and when they first got there, everybody's in their own little phones. But over time, if you start exposing them to other things that we knew about growing up, you'd be surprised how many times they'll put that phone down and they start talking and they start,
playing
really
board games,
things that you were like, oh.
I hate board games. They were playing.
So, sometimes it's okay to learn from those that are older, but it's okay to learn from those that are younger. Maybe we need to implement some more technology, and things like that. But everybody needs to feel like they have a part. It's not one or the other. Just because one's important doesn't mean that it negates the other group. It just means that we need to kind of bring it all together.
And that's community. I mean, I can tell you this, that the next time we come to this church, I'm going to feel like this is a warm church. And I haven't gone to any of your homes. I'm looking forward to that dish, though. Looking forward to it. But I can tell, because as we're talking, as we're interacting, we may not agree on everything, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's some things that we can agree on. One thing I know that we can agree on is that we love Jesus. We want to win people to Christ. And if we have that, it's funny, because if you have one thing in common with one person, it makes you want to grow and find out what else you have in common. So it's those things that build community. And that's what ultimately the Adventist church, that's why it is in existence, and the Christian church as well, is because there are people, where on earth, Jesus had disciples that were all kind of personalities, my goodness. But yet he was able to pull them together to change and turn the world upside down. And I think that is what God wants us to do. And that's the answer to that question, is how can we become that? Is simply by getting to know who we are. because I love hearing about where people grew up, history, what they went through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it lets me know that, wow, we've all had a journey and a story and a movement in our lives, and it brought us to this point. And amazingly, all of your stories are different, but all of you were brought to this point, College Station Seventh-day Adventist Church. And you accepted this three angels message, Jesus as your Savior, and you're here worshiping together. And all of the other things that come out of that, well, I don't agree with that, or you fall on this side and I fall, those things become kind of more on the peripheral instead of becoming the main thing. Because I can disagree with you, but I will not be disagreeable with you. I'm going to be honest with you.
I have to say that again.
I can't remember it. That's why I'm glad they recorded it. So those are the things that's what makes community. That's what makes community.
Well, for the last few minutes, I wanted to make sure I opened up in case you had any other questions, comments, suggestions, just any observations. Maybe we can start from this side and work our way back across the room.
I have a question. I want somebody to maybe answer this question.
Oh, okay. So there was one question that maybe you can clarify for me. It says, how should we think about movements that condemn math, traffic jams, and street crossing signals as racist?
Okay.
So no one in the room submitted this one?
So no one here submitted that one.
Okay. So I was just trying to get clarification. I didn't quite know where that was going.
I think I know maybe what, I think there are movements that kind of take, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, say it again?
There's a movement going on out there right now because of everything that's white is now considered racist. So even the little LED lights that are on your crosswalk light, they're white.
Oh.
So the street lights are racist. Math, I think, is supposed to be racist. I think even they're moving now with STEM. STEM is now racist. There's a big movement out there that's moving a lot of this. I think they're trying to make it that stuff is systemic.
Systemic, I got you.
So.
Okay, so I'm going to add something else to that assignment as we go across the room. So since you brought that up and clarified it a little bit for me, so let's dispel some of the myths that we sometimes have. And I'm going to give the first example, and I also want you to give me one takeaway, suggestion, comment, anything, same like before, but I want you to add this component to it. So I am black, and I hate watermelon. But it's stereotypical. I can remember going to a restaurant, I won't say where, and we were the only ones that looked like us. And
it wasn't in the South.
And it wasn't in the South. And the first thing they did before we even ordered our meal was saying, well, would you like some watermelon? And I nearly jumped out of my seat because I was like, why would you ask me that? And then he literally had to kick me under the table and said, look, babe. And when I looked around the entire restaurant, everyone had watermelon. But I was angry. And I was just like, well, why would you think I like watermelon? So that's a myth and a misconception that people have. All right. So I did.
And there's reasons for that. If you look at some of the characters from back in the yeah, there's some reasons. But I was of the fourth mind to look around and say, okay, we don't need to burn this down here. It's okay. Everybody's here.
But there are misconceptions. A lot of the times we automatically think if we're going back to this math thing, now that I have a clearer understanding of what you're saying to me, we automatically think everyone who's Asian, they're just good at math. I can tell you plenty of friends that I have that hate math and they're Asian. So we need to stop lumping people in a basket and learn these people as individuals. They are who they are from their life experiences that they share. It's taking the time to get to know it.
Let me just answer this question really quick about
Sure.
what do we do about those movements, okay? there are a lot of movements that you can join. I suggest sticking with the Adventist movement.
Amen.
Okay. There's some crazy stuff out there, and there's some conspiratory, beliefs and all. But listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. As Adventists, we can be a little bit, on the fringe of conspiratory. Especially when you think about this, we're talking about someone coming in the clouds with a bunch of angels, and the day that you worship on could determine some bad stuff for you. So when you think about it, you're like, man, so let's kind of not go on this side, because we've been known to do some crazy conspiracy stuff. Let's stick with the truth and just kind of let's be fine with that. All right, there's enough craziness out there. And just to dispel them, just give you a historical fact that the traffic lights was actually invented by a black person. So there's a lot of things that so this one, just run away from them on that one. All right. We started with Garrett Morgan. Yes. All right. So coming on over here. Somebody have something.
All right. So any observations, something you took away from today's presentation, suggestions? I'll keep my distance since I don't have my mask on. But anything like that you would like to add, or any myth you want to dispel about yourself?
I'm Southern and I do not like sweet tea.
Ah, I like that one. I like. Okay. Okay. And any takeaways?
I think just pay attention to who you're talking to. Try to put yourself in their shoes, but they should also put themselves in your shoes, because it's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
And perception, your perception may not be the same as theirs. So again, a two-way street. You can't perceive someone is saying something mean and hateful to you, because that's your perception. You got to also try to see it from their culture, their age, their color, their whatever category you want to stick somebody in.
Absolutely.
I think the more we take people out of categories and put them more in a single category of you're human, the better off we are.
There you go. Good takeaway.
Let's see, stereotypes. Yeah, I'm also Southern and I hate sweet tea. I'm white and I hate bland food.
Okay. Okay.
Those who get to know me find out I'm a fire mouth real fast. And those who say that they love hot food, love spicy food, I put to shame.
Oh,
all right.
This one right here. I hear competition coming along.
On fire for Jesus right
there
here.
You go. Fire food.
Elder, I start at habaneros, okay? Yeah. So there is that. Takeaway. Context is everything.
Yes.
Right? And the point is that unless we speak up, we're not going to know the story. Unless we share our story, nobody's going to know who our story is. They're not going to know our perception. But unless we're willing to ask and put ourselves at risk, then nobody's going to know nobody's story.
That was deep. Be a risk taker. That was my takeaway. We're going to take the whole show on the road and bring all of you with us, because y'all have some really good feedback. Okay. The mic's right behind you.
I just really enjoyed everything today. It's
Well,
just,
thank you.
It was hard. It just opens your heart, and I'm one of those people that I try to be kind to everyone. From the time I was a child up, I just enjoy people. I love people. So it just, I don't know, like I say, it just touches my heart. I think everybody should try to understand when they see somebody, not to judge them,
Yes.
but to think about them as a person like we are. Like, they're people. to be kind and loving and to help them if you see someone in need. I'm that way.
Good.
I just like to do it. I like
And what would you say would be something that would dispel a myth about you?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, think about it for a second. We'll come back. All right, we're going to head over here.
A myth about me. I am African. I am not African American.
Okay.
So I am learning what an African American is. Just
Welcome.
as you, I mean, honestly. Because I think a lot of people, especially before I talk, expect or have that image or perception of me. And I'm also not, I have a different history. I have a colonial history. I actually sometimes even feel like the Native American story is very parallel to what we experience in Africa. So I am open and willing to learn it. It's just that when people have that perception and then you're also like, oh really, that's me? It's really confusing.
So in other words, avoid the assumptions.
Avoid the assumptions.
Avoid the
honestly, yeah.
assumptions. There you go.
I think what I've learned today was when we were doing the drawing thing, and just how much time it took on the second one. I was really frustrated that we didn't finish the drawing.
Okay.
Like we didn't get to the goal. And
Don't leave yet.
It's that, I mean,
It might have some deep-rooted stuff later on.
I think it's probably because I'm impatient, but it really showed me as a leader, because I tend to just, like the first scenario, give the instructions. I haven't checked to see whether the people are understanding it. I'm going to the goal. We have 3 minutes. We need to finish this. Whereas today I learned that if I slow down, we might take longer, but people will understand.
Yes.
And so I think for me, that's something I need to learn as a leader.
Okay. Very good. All right. It can go either way. It doesn't matter. No one gets out of this. Be thinking.
Well, one myth that I want to dispel is about white men can't jump. That's not true. I knew Tom Chambers. I don't know if some of you guys are basketball. I know Pastor basketball. Man, this guy jumped out the gym. I mean,
wow.
he seemed like he can leap tall buildings and just one, and he's white, but he could jump so high, So that's a myth that's not, he just worked at it. One thing also that that we were talking about was the assuming, that ASSUME, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I remember that saying from a kid. Absolutely.
And I'm guilty of it. And so that's something I have to work on, and the thing that I enjoyed mostly was when, in the beginning, when you had us going from different, I saw a couple of us, we had variety. So I enjoyed that. I thought that was real significant.
So I didn't need to come. Y'all already have it together.
Well, I enjoyed the day. I mean, it was entertaining, it was educational, and it was fun.
Good.
You learn a lot, and when I was in the oil field, I had a guy that worked for me, and it kind of goes back to what your husband said a while ago. He told me, he said, Richard, if you don't learn something every day, you may as well stay home because you know everything. And, it's true. You're going to learn something. May not be what you want to learn, but you learn something every day.
That's true.
And most of the time that involves you learn that you wasn't right.
That's scary sometimes. But going back to what you said, sometimes you got to take a risk. Okay.
Okay, so this whole drawing, the first drawing, I think that Richard described it really well, and I think to me it seemed very clear as to what he was describing. And then when I drew exactly what he said. and let's just say it didn't quite come out the same way. And I think that even like people you think you know, it's best to backtrack a little bit and just make sure you know, but slow down a bit, get a little bit more of that information. And so the myth to dispel. So I'm from the South, but I'm not from the South the same way as you guys. I'm from North Carolina South.
Okay.
But it's kind of like that there too, where I'm from the South, yet I do not drive this giant truck. Okay, you may be surprised. Okay, so that's
I like
would
that.
like to dispel.
What do you drive?
I drive a I drive a compact little Toyota Yaris that's 10 years old. Yeah, and it has 200,000 miles on it.
There you go.
Yeah. So it is definitely the opposite of what I just described.
So no Texas truck, no Texas size truck. Everything's bigger in Texas. All right. Oh, which reminds me, you did not give me a myth.
About myself? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah.
Like a misconception, they may look at you and say, maybe this is something about Richard and it may not be.
Well, a lot of people, they look at me and they tell my wife, well, he's not Mexican, he looks more Italian. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, my dad was Hispanic.
Okay.
And so my mom was white. I was raised with my aunt and uncle that was white. I went to an all-white school, and I was the only one that they used to call Taco.
Oh, wow.
It never bothered me.
Did you, do you know Spanish? You
No.
speak Spanish?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Well, my wife's Filipino,
Oh, okay.
so I got white, Mexican, Filipino kids.
There you go.
Yeah.
All the more love.
We're pretty diverse in that
There you
family.
go.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Now your wife's been getting out of a lot of
Oh,
stuff, so I'm gonna
and-
pick on
and-
her next.
I have a real good friend, and he's of color. He don't know that shit, but he is.
Aww. Okay.
Yeah, that's my buddy. That's why I could tease him. So.
Group hug.
No, I don't know if it's a myth, but
Okay.
When they see me, ask, "Are you Asian?" Yeah. From where? Well, I was born in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
so they ask, "Do you like balut?" I don't know. You probably have heard balut. That's
Actually,
the
I
egg.
have. I have.
Egg with duck egg, I believe, and it has you say it's been fertilized
Mm-hmm.
or
Fermented. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it has feathers and everything, and you open that egg, and then they eat it. Is it good? I don't know. And I come to you.
So again, another assumption. They just
Correct.
assume because you're from a certain place that you should know about that. And I guess my mom would fall into that round. She's from the West Indies, and so they just assume that you like certain things. Do you like rice and peas? Do you like curry goat? Do you like such and such? But that might not always be the case. So again, key here, when you go home, what did you learn today? Don't assume.
I have one.
All right, hold
Oh,
on.
he didn't do his, and the
I didn't
pastor
get
didn't do his.
you or the pastor there.
Yeah. Well, for me, I am from the Caribbean. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. So, one myth is that just because you're born in the Caribbean, you know everybody in the entire Caribbean. So,
I like to
there-
negate that.
So a lot of the times when you call somebody and you talk to somebody and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Do you know this person? He's from Jamaica. I'm like, that's another island. Like,
That is
you know, or I mean, I wouldn't knock the Trinidad one too, but it's like, the Trinidad one is another one too. They'll be like, do you know this person? He's from Trinidad. Trinidad has 1.23 million people in it. So the possibility of me knowing 1.3 million people as
Impossible.
fun-loving and as much as I love to interact with people and make friends, I do not know 1.3 million or the how many of our million people in the Caribbean. So, but you know, it's all good. You know, one of the things that you know, that I learned is it's we have to be okay with being wrong. You know, I think you know, we all are wrong at some point in time, and sometimes you know, we don't really want to admit that, and we don't really want to face that reality that we may have done something, said something, maybe not done something in a way that was incorrect. And I think the other thing is, I think we need to be brave. You know, if we want to stand up for something, if you know that somebody has done something, said something, we need to be brave to be able to bring that forward. You know, I took the scenario in the toilet as you know, a different way, and maybe maybe I was incorrect in doing that too. But I just think about, you know, the reason we're here and we're talking about these things, right? A lot of these conversations are happening between ourselves and between people that probably believe the same thing that we believe in. And so we're not able to see where we're wrong. We're not able to see where we have maybe misunderstood something. We're not able to see where we may have judged somebody correctly, or judged something that was said incorrectly. We're talking about how we're you know, things that we probably even shouldn't be talking about. And so it's really being able to be wrong and being able to grow. You know, y'all mentioned about that. Your Christian walk is a walk. It's a journey. It's not a destination. You know, a lot of times we reach to a point and we're like, we've arrived. You've never arrived. You know, and I think we have to look forward to, even in heaven, to growing some more.
Absolutely.
And so if we're on this concept on earth that we've arrived, and we kind of know where things are and what we're supposed to do, then you know, we can't grow. And when we stop growing, we start shrinking, we start dying. And it doesn't, you know, we talk about the Bible, about these people that they knew the scripture, but they didn't have the relationship. And being a Christian is not knowing the scripture. Being a Christian is not being able to, as Pastor mentioned, being a checkbox Christian. And, you know, I come on Saturday, I pay my tithes, and blah, 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 I'm a Christian. And still having thoughts and still, you know, expressing certain views of the world. And so we really need to be able to get out of that concept and focus on what we're supposed to be focusing on, a Christian, you know, on the mission of this church. And the mission is based on love. It's not based on judging. It's not based on perception. It's not based on the media. It's based on love.
Yes.
And the moment that we kind of separate ourselves, and it's hard. I mean, we're you know, and I know we didn't talk about all of this, but we live here, and God is saying, yes, you live here, but you should not adhere to the concepts of this world, because you're a kingdom child. You're supposed to be adhering to the concepts that I teach you. And so if we could spend some more time removing ourselves from that, as hard as it is, because we're bombarded every day, and to be able to remove ourselves from that and be able to really understand what our purpose is, we'll be better people as a result. So I know that was a handful, but you know, those are some of the things you know, that I came out of. And so.
All right, Pastor. Oh my. All right, well, we want to make sure we give an opportunity to our pastor.
Let's see. A takeaway. We'll do a takeaway from this. Is there's a right time and a right place to deal with things, and you've got to deal with them.
Absolutely.
But there's always a right time, right place, and right attitude. You always got to watch your own motives and things like that. So I really enjoyed that part. and making sure as a church leader that we are being inclusive, not hanging on the fact that we're diverse, but also inviting to the dance. I like that. I like that a lot.
All right. One myth about you?
About me personally, I don't know.
Wait a minute.
I caught you on the spot.
Okay.
Be careful.
Yeah, hold on. wait.
Your members are here too.
No, okay, as a pastor.
That's fine.
Okay, as a pastor. I
Gotta be safe.
wait, no, okay. Preaching is one of the hardest things that I have to do. It's very, very, very hard. And it does not come regularly or easy at all. So maybe people think pastors, are great and all this kind of stuff, but it's a very, very hard thing that you got to do. So that's what I'll just say about being a pastor. That's all the myths I'll
That's
take.
actually a very good point.
So,
all right. You didn't get away. I'm coming to you, dear.
Well, the only myth that I know about myself is that everybody's always talking about how quiet you are. You never talk. You never say anything. But they've never been at my house when my children are home visiting, and I only get loud or get noisy is when I hear them talking about things that they shouldn't even be speaking about or talking about, and then I get very loud. So those people who think I'm a quiet person all the time, it's just because I like to listen. Especially when I'm in church, I want to listen to everybody. I tell that to him when he teaches Bible study. Ted, don't ask me questions. I'm listening.
Okay. Make sure you're taking notes. Thank you.
Oh, I'm always trying to pull an answer out of them sometimes.
So, as you can tell, and I'm coming to you, dear. So, the thing about it is, you learned a little bit about somebody else in this room that you may not have known about before. Use this as a catalyst. Build friendships, build relationships, and let it go forth into the community.
Amen. So one takeaway I would say is that, once again, we've enjoyed ourselves here. You have always been warm and welcoming, and we will be praying for you and your future. And we're so thankful at the Texas Conference that you are here and this church exists here. We know it's not easy all the time, but we thank you for all that you do and the blessings that you provide for this community and for the conference. So that's the takeaway that I came for today. So a myth about me is that I don't smile. You look at my wedding pictures, I was in my uniform, I did not smile.
Oh, explain what uniform.
Marines. There's only one uniform. But I do smile, and once again, I think I mentioned it earlier. When people get to know who I am, they literally say, "I never would have believed that Pastor Dixon was like that, never," because I like to have fun, and I like to have fun because one of the things when we were pastoring young people is that young people are always like, pastors are never fun. They're boring and this, but literally, I had to kick people out of my house. They would not go home. And it's not anything that I possess. It's just that I like people, and I want people to feel comfortable, and I want people to, whatever struggles or issues they have, I want to be able to minister to them. But they have to know that I am also human. I love cycling. That's the other thing, is that people don't believe that I will cycle like, miles and miles and miles, 3 and 4 hours, 50 miles, 80 miles. They don't believe I do that. But I love doing that, literally, every Sunday morning, every Friday, sometime in a week, But I think the myth is that he doesn't smile, but I do. I smile a lot, I laugh a lot, but I also know how to be professional when I need to. So this was not one of those cases, so just want to let you know. You guys took me off my guard.
Some kind of to do a closing prayer for
But you didn't give yours. Oh, you
did.
You
I
did
started
watermelon,
out.
but you didn't say what your takeaway.
Oh, takeaway. Wow. The student asking the teacher, wow. Okay, no, honestly, and not to simplify it, but actually, I would really piggyback off of everything that everyone said here. Honestly, having to give this presentation, you never know the type of feedback you're going to get. And sometimes I feel like I'm just staring at a wall and I'm just talking to the wall. But honestly, I appreciate the answers you gave, because again, it even forces me to go back and think about all the things I had preconceptions about, and like, okay, that made sense. That was actually deep. I mean, these guys over here, you said you're quiet, but sometimes when you're quiet, when you do speak, you speak a wealth of knowledge. And I learned a lot, because I've been moving through the room and I've been listening, and and I did hear some things that I'm gonna definitely take away from it.
That hoop, there it is.
Oh yeah, whoop! As a matter of fact, you're not gonna live that down every time we see you. So, but honestly, I try to learn from the groups that I present to, and you guys have been awesome. I really didn't know what to expect coming here, but you guys have really opened up. Thank you for trusting us with your answers, because I know sometimes it's hard to talk to strangers, especially when you don't know them and you haven't built that relationship offhand. But I just appreciate you being willing to partake in the activities and really share your experiences, because again, that's what makes you you. And hopefully, as long as we're here in Texas Conference, we're just passing through right now, but don't ever feel like you can't come to me and just say, hey, Kathryn, because, that's what we're here for, okay? All right. And if you can give us a closing.
Well, just before you all do that, just on behalf of our church, we have a little gift bag here, a little bit of snacks and food, and a little gift just to show our appreciation. This guy, he was at my house for like 2 hours, and we laughed the whole time. So awesome guy, and Kathryn's awesome. So we just love both of you guys. Thank you so much for coming back and leading us in this conversation. Thank you, church members, for coming, and everybody else that wanted to watch online and everything. Really have been blessed this afternoon, so thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
There are a few churches that I will say I will come back to. So I've been here. This is the second time, but third time.
It's a charm.
Yeah. So, but no, we are blessed to have been here today. Let's pray as we close out. Father in heaven, Lord, we want to thank you for this opportunity just to talk about diversity, inclusion, Lord, and we have gained so much from one another, Lord, and I pray for all the members here, those that are watching, those that are that could not attend for whatever reason, Lord. We just ask that you would bless them. Lord, we know that time is winding up, and we want to be ready when you come, but Lord, we know that we will not have the ability to really understand the fullness of salvation until you arrive. But we also need to know and understand that it is those around us that we must bring along with us. So, Father, we pray that you would be with the households that are represented here and also those that are watching. Be with us in this upcoming week. Watch over us. Bless the pastor, bless his wife and their new baby on the way. Continue to give them health. And Lord, just be with this church as it is a beacon in this community. Let individuals pass this church and wonder what's going on here, and allow them to stop and feel your love. We pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you.
Everybody has books. Just put them on this back table here if you're writing on them, and we'll take care of them.